Hello, my name is Nakia Barber, and today I'm going to be presenting you information about the data overview of the students at Conyers Middle School. The dates or the time frame of the data that was collected was 2012 through 2015. So the purpose of this data is so that we can look at different trends in our achievement gap with our students. We can tell how our students have increased or decreased their scores from year to year, how we compare with other schools in the district, so that we can gather this information and find strategies for our teachers, our administrators to use, parents to use, all stakeholders involved, so that we can increase the student scores from year to year. We can show proficiency in their knowledge and content area, and by using the content or the information here in the data, we can begin to work more efficiently together so that we can provide strategies, programs, incentives for our students to use so that they can be successful as possible. Conyers Middle School is located in Conyers, Georgia. We're one of the 4 middle schools in the Rockdale County District, which is located outside of Atlanta. Our specialty program at our school is aerospace engineering, which was just started this year. And in addition to that, we have our AVID program, which allows students to gain organizational skills that they'll need for high school and college. Conyers Middle School is also a Title I school. And I want to share with you the population. So over the last 3 years, we've seen a steady increase in the amount of students that have been enrolled at our school. 2013, we had 859 6th, 7th, and 8th graders. We've had 907 students in 2014, and then in 2015 we had a really increase from 2013 to 2015 to show that we now have 930 students enrolled in our school. And of those 930 students here in 2015, this table shows you the different race ethnicities that are enrolled at the school, and it also shows you kind of the population of each one over the past 3 years. So just looking at the information, you'll see that we have a really high number of blacks at our school. The next really big ethnicity would be our white students, and then we have a lot of Hispanic students. And as you can see with the data, that number has increased as well over the past 3 years. Here is some additional subgroups, and you can take a look at those. They tell you, as far as our students, I did say that we were a Title I school, which means we have a really high number of students that receive free and reduced lunch. Additionally, we have a good number of students with disabilities, and the disabilities haven't been categorized, so all the students who test and they receive accommodations and special testing, and they're labeled under the canvas of student with disabilities, they are grouped into that category. We don't have any migrant students, and then we have a really short percentage, 2% of our population has limited English proficient. Attendance is another important factor that goes into the data that we receive, and that is our students. Are they at school? Are they there to get the education? Are they missing valuable educational time? So this basically shows that 5 or fewer is the biggest chunk of students who have attendance issues. That means they've missed 5 or fewer days. We do have a 6.5% number of students who miss more than 15 days of school, and then we have a lot of our students right there in that 6 to 15 days. So again, attendance does reflect in your data, because if they're not in school, then they're not getting that valuable classroom time. Alright, so 2013-2014, I took a look at the CRCT scores. This shows you the students that are meeting or exceeding the standards. Now, the only 2 years on here shows 2013 and 2014 because 2015 we wound up taking the milestone. And I do have the milestone information also, but right now I just want to show you these 2 years. And looking at the data, 2 areas stood out to me, and that was math and science. We have at least 42-3% of our students over the past 3 years have scored in the meeting and exceeding in reading. The same thing for social studies, but then you see a really small number in our math and science. So those were the 2 content areas that I chose to look at when I narrowed down the information about the data. Moving forward to 2015, now that we have the milestone test, you'll see that I took all the content subject areas, and this shows the percentage of students who did meet or exceed the standards, okay? The highest one was social studies. Science will be the lowest one, and we'll take a look at that information further in the presentation. Okay, so this time I want to discuss what programs are in place based on the information that I showed you. I showed you that there was a low number of students meeting or exceeding the standards for math and science. What programs are in place to provide students with assistance in those areas? Because if you see an area that is lower than the others, you do want to provide them with things that they can use in the classroom so that we can increase their scores. I know this year one of the things that we did at our school was we had a during school tutorial program that was totally for students that scored low in math. So during the connections time, the students would go twice a week to a tutor and get help in math. That was prior to the milestone. So that was one of the programs that they had in place to help students. Additionally, looking at the data, we saw that the scores were higher in reading. So my question for this one, what strategies, program incentives are working with reading to show a steady increase over the past 3 years? Reading also was one of the areas that we were focusing on because of comprehension and writing skills. So I do know moving into 2016 from 2015, we did put in place a clear program which requires students to read more in class. Between 10 and 15 minutes in each of the class periods, students were reading more. Also, another thing to help provide assistance in math, I'm going backwards to the first question. We did change our schedule this year. We changed it from periods to block. So that was one of the strategies we put in place to provide students with more time in classes. So that they can actually get information, because with the periods they were finding that by the time the students actually get the content for that class period, it's time to leave. So we decided to move to a block scheduling so that they have more time in the class, more time to do hands-on activities, differentiated activities, group activities, so that the students would be able to get the information. Alright, so here are the math scores. Now this is where we compare Conyers Middle School to Rockdale, and we compared it to the state. So if you look on it, we were looking for distinguished. Again, this one doesn't have meets or exceeds, so I went with distinguished. In this category, we see that Conyers Middle School has 5.1% of their students who are distinguished learner level. Okay, Rockdale, compared to the other middle schools, they have 7.9, and then we move to Georgia, and they have 12. So in that area, we are below the district, and we are below the state. All right, so 2 factors that I looked at, or actually 1 factor that I looked at when I was looking at the information, was gender. How does gender play into the role of test scores? So I took a look at the math distinguished learner level and looked at the male students. So this information displays each category, the percentage in each. So in this particular subgroup, males, 4% of the students are in the distinguished learner level. There's 16% proficient, so right there it meets. It would have been our meets and exceed. Proficient, distinguished, we're at 4%. And the number of students that were tested was 435. And then we look at our female students in the math distinguished learner level. You'll also see that they also have 4%, and they 440 students were tested. So they're both equal. Female and male math learner level, both of them scored 4% in the distinguished level. All right, and then the other category or the other content was science. In the percentage of students in Conyers Middle School was 4.8%. Rockdale County was 6.2%. And then the state of Georgia was 8.1%. So in that area, again, we were lower than district and state level in the distinguished learner level group. Again, we looked at the gender. This one shows 5% of the males scored in the distinguished learner level in science. And it had a great amount of students. I said a good amount of students in the proficient level as well. And then in the female, you'll see a drop. There is only 2% of the female population that scored distinguished in science and learner. So in the science subject, the males did score higher, or more percentage of students scored in this distinguished level than females. I did want to provide you the other content areas just so how you can see how we compare to Rockdale and Georgia. 5.1% was the percentage of students who were distinguished in English, 6.1% for Rockdale County, 7.9% for Georgia, so we were lower than those. And then social studies, we have Conyers Middle School 8.2%, Rockdale has 9.9%, Georgia has 13.2%. In that area alone, that was the highest area where we had the highest number of students who were in the distinguished level. However, we're still below the district and the state level of students, percentage of students who are in the distinguished level. So the summary for this information basically says that between 2012 and 2015, there was an increase of amount of students. If you remember back to the population, there was an increased amount of students in Conyers for that 3-year time frame. With that amount of students, you had more students that had disabilities, as well as more students who received free and reduced lunch. Based on the data that I gave you, though, the number of students in the distinguished learner level are below the average of district and state in all the content. Math, science, ELA, social studies. We were all below district and state level. And in the areas of math and science, in math, both female and male students were equal in the percentage of students who were in the distinguished level. And then in science, males performed more. They had 4%, and then the females only had 2%. Thank you.